Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. Take 2. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, once again, we are joined by 10th Man, Arwin, the Adam Meakin, Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, Quantum Eraser, welcome, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome one and all.
Hello again.
Hello. Welcome back. Welcome
Hello
back.
again.
Okay, so I think because I wasn't recording when I was streaming live at 1440p 60 to my members, I hadn't actually accounted for the fact that both streaming at that resolution and encoding and recording at that resolution might cause a bit of a problem. So I've just turned down the resolution, so it won't be a high definition stream, it'll just be a high definition stream. So better than 720, still at 1080, still running at 60 frames per second, but it's just 1440s beyond even the very best of hardware to stream and record at the same time. Fine, no worries. 1080's gonna have to be good enough.
Are you saying
anyway?
In 4 years' time, this will look terrible?
That's what my argument to you was a couple of days ago, right? I want to keep ahead of the times. Well, it seems keeping ahead of the times means I can't have a backup recording, so that goes without saying we're going to be at this resolution because I'm going to have to. I want to record, you know, because if something goes wrong, like it did, you keep the recording. Anyway, for the audience that are watching this after the fact, right, there's a reason there's a little B at the end of the number, whatever the hell the number is, into the 1700s or something. But that B represents the fact that the last live stream just went completely tits up, and now we're on to the same live stream. So if you're wondering why there's not that anybody's keeping track of the housekeeping questions being asked in some concise way at all, but I'm going to make that disclaimer anyway, in case you're wondering, oh, why didn't you cover Earth Curve? Because we cover it in the other 6-minute live show, that's why. Anyway, so we've had Earth Curve, and I want to keep on that theme by asking, is there any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
An impossibility.
Well, a curved adjacent is not something that exists in reality. So no.
Right, they'd have to bypass it and get all complicated based on the assumed axial point towards the dead center of the ball Earth. It's convoluted. It's not actually used. You need a flat plane to do it properly.
That's why they, in their books, the origin of the angle is the equatorial plane. It's just the plane we live on, but they call it the equatorial plane. So who would have thunk that the angle will destroy the sphere model, which doesn't exist? The very word angle.
Any evidence
on that note, has anybody looked at the definition of circle in a while?
Not in recent couple of weeks, maybe. Go on, why'd you ask?
Two-dimensional.
Because, yeah, in Euclidean geometry, circles can only be drawn on planes. And so circles of equal altitude can't be drawn on a sphere because it doesn't fit the definition.
Good point. That does sound a lot like Bev Try Thinking in terms of his points, which are equally cogent and excellent in that regard, right? We're talking about geometry. You've got to define your geometric terms. And if your bent radial value, curving, lifting altitude, area of equal elevation doesn't comport with the actual geometry of it being two-dimensionally drawn on a plane, as you've just described, then you're just not meeting the definitions that we're being held to if we're doing stuff and navigating for example, which is where you'll use your circle of equal elevation. I mean, there's no way around it, really. You're pointing out that the definition is circle, and that's going to require a plane to draw it on in terms of its geometry. Okay, I agree. But it qualifies the type of circle in the description of it, doesn't it? It says area of equal elevation, right? Circle of equal altitude. What does equal altitude mean? It's not like they're trying to say it's bent and you've got bits below you dropping away 8 inches per mile squared. They make it absolutely explicitly clear. Area of equal elevation, circle of equal altitude. These things aren't confusing. They're in plain English.
It's a rewording of the original objection Brian had, which is you can't have a bent R. It's just an extrapolation of that, really. But that fundamentally was the same thing when Brian said that. You can't have a bent R because it sits on a flat plane.
Godzilla says, this stream has brought to you by Tube. There's going to be letters that are missing that are in a conundrum that we haven't got. I've had a stressful morning. Look, I've got to be honest, Godzilla. Figuring out your super chat is not as easy as saying, thank you very much for the support. I really appreciate it, Godzilla. That and I haven't got the chat to display, which I'm just useless. Where's the chat? I can see it on my backup chat and I can't put it up on screen. Anybody figure out what the hell Godzilla's saying? Thank you for the support, by the way, in all seriousness.
This stress has been brought to you by YouTube, I think.
Right.
On the circle of equal altitude, we last year started labeling that more correctly because it's actually the circle of equal angle. And that is what I say to the borders. You can't, whereas the angle, when they put that circle, when they try and curve the R, which is an impossibility, as it destroys pi, you try and put that onto and shrink the circle to put it onto a spherical surface, then you don't have an equal angle. You don't have any angle because you then have a curved, not just a curved R in that circumstance, you have a curved adjacent, which is non-existent also. So radius lines and adjacents have to be straight. You have no angle to anything at that point once you place that circle onto a sphere. You have no angle because there is no angle possible.
Well, there's no way someone could go to the extreme extent of trying to redefine a radius as anything but straight. I mean, that's just discounts them from the argument, but that's what they do.
Yeah, this isn't happening on screen. It all looks tidy and was always.
Just gone bad.
Right, Godzilla's given us the reply. The super chat was making fun of the audio quality of your first attempted stream. Right, okay. Yeah, get lost. Thank you for the super chat. It was only 6 minutes. Look, I made the decision there and then. Look, cut your losses. It's very unprofessional to have terrible quality stream and just go, well, it's like an airplane, right? Once you're in the air, you just got to kind of deal with it. You could just get on with it. No, put that plane back on the ground, sort out the flaming engine, and then get back in the air. That's what I've done.
Nathan, I see you have the no Bitcoin for you image up. Still to this day, they have not stepped up to claim their Bitcoin. All they have to do is prove R in the sphere Earth. And yet they had a challenge from McToon for $10,000, just chump change. And they had a bunch of disclaimers in the agreement that we can use the Nautical Almanac, we can use anything that they derived as globe base, when obviously none of it is. You can't get an elevation angle with a curved baseline. So what's happened to that thing? I haven't heard anything about the stupid $10,000 challenge with all the disclaimers that Adam read that one time, which no one would sign that agreement because there's no way to win the way they wrote it. Whereas the Bitcoin is, hey, just prove that we live on a sphere and you get Bitcoin.
Contraire. No way to win.
And who protects that?
Hold on. No way to win the 10 grand tied up in disclaimers and red pen on contracts that they want you to commit to so that you'll never get a dime out of them. You'll only never get the 10 grand. You won't not win. On the contrary, the moment they put it to us, I haven't read any of the terms and conditions. I couldn't give a crap. I wouldn't want their dirty money. in this regard that you'd never get anyway. I'd just say you needed an elevation angle off a flat plane. To this day, Protothad still comes into my comments and starts pointing out how this and that and the other angle, and I just stopped reading the rest of his comment and just post the same exact reply. I've pasted the exact same reply to Protothad probably in excess of 100 times now. With him, he's not important enough to keep track of, but it is in excess of 100 times, I can assure you. Where I just say, angle? You don't need a flat earth for that. Here's 20 citations. It used to be 10. People have added to them. They're easy to find because angles are angles and they're never going to have curved surfaces. So he's lost and gone nuts and feels it's his obligation to keep commenting about angles. It's like, mate, you've already died on your ass with these angles that need a flat plane to get. You died on your ass when you presented it to us. What's that? Why wouldn't we get the 10 grand? Because it's tied up in red tape. Nobody's appealing to the 10 grand. Everyone's appealing to the flat earth that you needed to make the challenge.
Well, I can give you history about MC Toon's challenge, right? It first came out via Bob the Science Guy when Bob came onto the show, and it was Proto's challenge. Now, what MC Toon did is he took Proto's challenge, changed a few small things around, still the exact same thing, right? Just changed around maybe what stars they were using or whatever. And then what they did, right, is they put out the challenge with all these critiques, right? If that's the right word. You must do this, you must do that, you must do the other thing. And one of the critiques that was right out on the show and laughed at is you must use flat earth geometry, right? Whatever the hell that is. And Bev called him out on this. Bev read it, called him out on it, and made an absolute fool of him. So he redid it and brought it out without the flat earth geometry part in, and he was pushing it. And I said, okay then, why don't you take your challenge and you prove your globe with your challenge? And I didn't even think about or even mention the Bitcoin, but that would have been, he could have got that. I said, you go and prove your challenge with, you go and prove your globe with your challenge. And he disappeared. And a lot of people didn't know why he disappeared. It was because me. He disappeared because I did. I got rid of him. Because straight away, you have to go around. If that supposedly proves the globe, then you go and prove it using celestial navigation.
Although you mentioned it in
all
passing,
the steps go through the whole thing.
I was going to say, although you mentioned it in passing, if they're saying, regardless of their phraseology, it's going to debunk a flat Earth, okay, so it's going to prove we're on a curved surface then. Why haven't they come and presented it for Bitcoin? Oh, is it because before it even got anywhere near coming close to this show for Bitcoin via Dave Weiss, they'd already been told that the angles they were presenting to be used, how they'd work on a flat Earth, were measured on a flat Earth. That's how far it got. You think it's going to be put up for Bitcoin proof? What's this? What's this angle here? This measurement here? What's that? That's an angle you got from a flat plane. So what are you talking about? Where's the angle you got from a curved surface? Oh, you can't get one? So your entire challenge based on elevation angles requires a flat Earth? What, and you think it's somehow a globe proof, you bunch of numpties? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Speaking of angles and elevation angles and using celestial objects.
No, it's purely optical. We only have angles and, well, apparent angular sizes. Visually, that's it.
Apparent angular sizes. No, we've just got angular sizes. That's redundant.
Yeah, it is redundant, but I wanted to extra emphasize that it is really in the field of optics only that we even have the phenomenon. And yeah, there is no indication that it is actually in a literal Euclidean position, an object or something emanating light from that actual position.
And it's funny.
But that
during
wasn't the
Selenium-
question. The question is, do you know the distance? No.
Well, without it being physical in a Euclidean position, then you can't really have a distance now, can you?
That's not the only way you can go on that. Now, we know that they state that it's infinite distance away on this imaginary celestial sphere, and those are the stars, and somewhere in between that and us on their globe model is the sun, 93 million miles. How'd they get that distance?
No distance to
Not
the
like that.
sun.
Yeah, during Selenium.
No.
Sorry,
Selenium.
go ahead.
The Selenium.
Yeah, Selenium. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah. During that, they'll say that the sun is refracted above the horizon during that as well.
Well, this reminds me of the interview with Robin Poe when she talked about getting a connection out in Italy, in Ferrari. And she's in the mountains. She's supposed to be linking up these relays at a distance of, say, 20k apart for these radio transmissions. And she can't get a signal because there's a load of crap in the way. So she points the antenna back at the source. It's 115 miles away. And she instantly gets a perfect signal. Many years later, she realises that that's an absolute stone-cold flat Earth proof. Couldn't have worked on a sphere. Won't work on a sphere. Had to be flat in order to work. And it then made her realise why all of the superiors suddenly came and told her to take it down, even though it solved a massive problem with the relays not being able to connect because there was bloody mountains and trees in the way. Mountains and trees stopping a 20-mile or 20-kilometre relay from working. I should stop mixing up these distance definers. Anyway, the 115 odd miles away, yeah, that works perfectly because it's got a direct line of sight. No trees, no mountains, no nothing in the way, just a direct line of sight back to the source. No relay needed. She was told to take it down. Now, she explained that story. She just chuckled. She didn't say explicitly, because the Earth is flat. If there was a geometric physical sphere edge obstruction called Earth curve getting in the way of that signal, it wouldn't have connected back to source over 100 miles away. Like with the mountain relay, there would be something in the way. A physical mountain being in the way stopped the relay working. Earth curve didn't stop the relay going back 115 miles. Earth's flat. She didn't explicitly state that. But this now, this reminds me of
it's
that.
like the microwave distance measurement record, which is 146 miles. Now, I think they got it to 162 after that, but I know they got it to 146 officially. I know that did happen. But 146 miles from, I think it was like a 200-foot high position. They got the 146 miles. The problem they have is power. Getting the signal, the power they need to send the signal further, because there's a microwave, as far as I know. And there was another one. Just 1 second. There was another one that was over 300 miles. But it was contested over. There was one silly little thing, but it was between these two islands. But there was another one that was over 300 miles that I read about.
Well, in the old days, they used Laurent, and the shore-based system during the day would ping off 750 miles offshore, and at night it went over 1,500 miles.
What do you think we're using now? What we use now for telecommunications is just a direct relative of Laurent's in terms of how that works. And how you're describing, well, at night when it's all clear, you get a really clear signal. What, like with your phone? Yeah, because it's the same thing. It's all ground-based.
And what about EPIRBs that they use in the oceans for when someone falls into the ocean? They have an EPIRB on their life vest, or they have them in boats and that as well. I think they're like an emergency signal they can use that. But the whole point of them is they send out a wave, but you're already in the ocean with a life vest on you. So where is this wave being sent out to? It's been picked up by ground-based antennae at a ridiculous distances.
I fell off a boat once, but I didn't actually land in the ocean. I landed on the tangent line, so it was all right.
Good to know. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core that we would stand in if we were using the equatorial plane?
Not even close.
But we stand there when we've measured our angles off a flat baseline, and then we need to use the celestial sphere model. One would, if a globe believer, assert that you're actually standing at the centre of a molten iron core, right? Right in the middle.
Yeah, that's when it backfires for them. There's no such thing. This is all made up stuff. No one's at the center of any globe taking an angle measurement. It's just being taken off the plane we live on and then reified to center of a ball that doesn't exist.
Any
Technically,
evidence?
that's just a formality, that question, isn't it? Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I was
It's
just going
just-
to move on
it's
with
just a
question. Go
formality.
ahead.
There's just that question about the molten iron core. It's just a formality. That's the only reason that that's asked. Nobody ever
what's the-
claims it. Nobody comes in to argue it. Because how
Well-
can you? Sorry.
No, I was going to say, this is the big lie. They use light coming in straight, and so then they could put one there. They could put one on the tangent plane on the surface of their dingleberry, and then they could put one with a fictitious horizontal over there in the plane with a bubble section and have 3 lines and say, hey, they're corresponding to the same angle. Where did you derive the angle from in the first place? I mean, they're saying it's on the curved surface where you can't get an angle from that. So just because you do 3 lines, they're all parallel to one another and saying, see, it all works.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope. But the universe might be spinning around the Earth.
What? Universe? What do you mean by universe? You mean the stars appear to move around us? Yeah,
Yes,
from our
and
position, it
whatever we
seems
think they might
geocentric.
be. It all depends on what you think the stars are.
Why did you just sound like Jim Kirk, Nathan?
Say again?
I said, why did you sound like James T. Kirk?
Because I was waiting for Arwen to interrupt. Which he did. So yeah, we're geocentric, but that's an apparent movement of the stars that you're talking about. Your answer is to say, well, it depends what you think the stars are. Okay, not really.
Exactly.
In my mind's eye, it might be a one way or another, but that doesn't affect what we actually perceive of the stars. And I've got no idea, and neither of you, what they are.
Right, but the main point is that we wouldn't expect to see any kind of motion here on Earth. Even though it's claimed that the Earth is the thing that's spinning. But I disagree with that.
Oh, I mean, you would see various motions that they claim we would see, but we don't. And you'd feel things that we'd feel that we should, and we don't. But it doesn't alter that we don't know what the stars are.
Right, so what the real task is to take a spaceship, go outside of the atmosphere, hang there, and then see if it is indeed the galaxy that is spinning around the Earth. And that you would
within the
naturally
conception of
remain
heliocentrism.
geostationary in relation to the presupposed spinning Earth, or that you would be caught up in the stationary reference frame of the galaxy, and that it was indeed the Earth is spinning, and then we got something really weird going on because then the Earth is spinning without any Coriolis deviation.
Yeah, but your conception started with begging the question, atmospheric pressure that we can leave to look back in. Well, is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure, atmospheric, that sphere-shaped air, without a container?
Can't have sphere-shaped air. Let me try that again. You can't have sphere-shaped air. Gases have no shape.
They take the shape of their container, so you can have a sphere-shaped container and put air in it. But sphere-shaped air is an oxymoron.
Well, what about Jupiter?
Oh,
They're
here we
not
go.
taking.
So
They're not taking.
does this depend what we think
Hold
the
on a
lights are? What about Jupiter? Okay, a light in the sky. What about it?
Isn't it a giant gas ball?
No. I have no idea what it is. It might be. It seems unlikely, given the laws that we abide by here on Earth, that somehow it's beyond those laws. Now, we don't know if it is or isn't beyond those laws. We just know what our laws here on Earth are. But to imply, when we don't know either way, that it somehow violates the second law of thermodynamics and is a ball of gas not expanding into the area of volume it has to fill is absolutely absurd. I wouldn't go to that sort of wishful thinking when I don't know either way.
Okay, so are you saying then that the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the galaxy?
No, I'm saying the second law of thermodynamics applies because it's a law of nature, and if you decide that a light in the sky behaves in a certain way, and that way happens to violate the second law of thermodynamics, I'll just say that's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Your appeal to, well, it's different out in space, oh, well, have you looked?
Well, you said distinctly that it might be, so I was just going with that.
No, that's not what I said. I said
Yeah,
I
you
don't
did.
know.
It's recorded.
So I didn't. I said I don't know that it isn't that, which means
well, that's same.
Your appeal. Yeah, but there's a million things it could be, right? And
Yeah,
I
but
don't know
you
that
said
they're
it
not any of them. But my point is that by not knowing that it isn't something, I'm not going to use an argument from silence fallacy or an argument from ignorance fallacy, rather, to appeal to something that we don't know either way. But it's even worse to appeal to something that violates the laws that we do know and understand, which is what your description of Jupiter as a gas ball in a vacuum would be.
Yeah, but not if the second law of thermodynamics simply doesn't apply to anything outside of the Earth.
The law of nature, therefore, if we're going to claim that it's part of our nature, it's a law that it would apply to. Now, you're appealing to, I don't know what it could be, therefore I'm going to assert that it's a violation of the laws we do know. Is ludicrous. I know it's the heliocentric claim, by the way, Arwin. Just thanks for playing along.
No problem.
Yeah,
I could add
Yeah,
to
but the
that.
only way to fix it is to just make it very convoluted until all you remember is just the baseline of what you got at first hand that didn't actually make any sense, but it's very exciting.
Owen said it's recorded.
Yeah, no,
Here,
that was
it is.
class. That was a very good move.
If I may, it is recorded. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. They're just lights.
Excellent.
It would have been a better time to have I hate soundboards and sound effects and such, but if I'd have had an echo button then, just to put a bit more God in your voice, that would have been brilliant.
Yeah, it would have sounded really good, like a Charlton Heston.
I
Yes.
just want to state that Arwen won that little debate with Nathan there.
No, he did
As
not.
Arwen said, he did, because Arwen said, and no one caught him on it. And I couldn't answer at the time, but I would have only been interrupting anyway. Arwen said, he said, are you claiming that the laws of thermodynamics don't apply to the galaxy? What's that?
That's what I asked
What
him. That was my
galaxy? What's the
first question to him. The first thing I asked him was, what are you calling a galaxy? That was my first question.
Yes.
Did you ask him that straight after that?
That was my first question.
Yeah, but
Well,
then I moved
apologise,
away.
I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
How dare you
No,
say he
excuse
won?
me.
No way. I won't stand by that.
Excuse Brian, he just spaced out for a second.
Shit. That's a special pleading fallacy, by the way.
Special pleading. Oh, it was on the tip of my tongue.
I had a
The thing is,
universal pun.
Arwen moved away real quick after that.
What did I churn through? Argument from ignorance and argument from silence? No. Special pleading. Exactly. Right. Yeah, because we don't know, it's going to have this nonsense waffle that I'm going to assign to it because we don't know. Special pleading fallacy.
It's one of the favorites.
No. The special pleading fallacy was when he said that the second law only applies to the earth.
Isn't that?
I
Isn't that
didn't
just the reverse
literally
of the-
say that, though,
isn't-
to be fair. I said that it wouldn't apply to anything outside of the Earth.
Special pleading fallacy.
Well, I want to know why
Right,
when
but
you
we
use
have,
that.
to be fair, we only have really tested the second law of thermodynamics here on Earth.
Same special,
To be
same
fair.
exact special pleading fallacy then.
I just want to know why using that particular fallacy, you end up with a waffle.
Nonsense waffle. Just so we're back on track, right? The nonsense waffle is more important than the fallacy in this instance. The nonsense waffle is to assert the lights you observe in the sky that are different colours are actually burning balls of gas or accumulations of gas existing in a vacuum. It's nonsense. Gases do not behave like that. Now, the reason they behave like that, according to their model, is because of gravitational accretion in a fourth-dimensional pseudo-reality that we don't exist in. That's why it does it in their globe Earth reality. We don't exist in pseudo-Riemannian 4 space-time, though, do we? We don't have a fourth dimension.
Yeah, but
How do we know it don't happen in space?
Because space
that
isn't
was
real.
a good question.
Space isn't real. Space is fake. Outer space, the area that they're claiming these lights reside in, is an area claimed to be a vacuum. No, that's fake. Violation of natural law.
But to be fair, you know, there have been very little tests really on gas behavior in outer space entirely.
In outer
Most
space.
of what we get to
I
see
agree.
is
Begging
the
the
question
fictional
fallacy.
interpretation of what they think it might be. But in reality, there have been very little testing on how gas even really behaves in outer space.
Right, it's the same
You're going to
special,
get jumped on in a minute.
same
with
exact
that.
special pleading fallacy and a begging the question fallacy thrown in for good measure. Right, okay.
Why
Third time's a
don't you
charm.
volunteer to go out into space, Arwen, and test it for us?
He can't go to Narnia.
Well, the problem is we can't really get there. We used to have the technology, but then, yeah, we lost it, and it's too painful to put it back together again. And
What a
maybe if
shame.
we put it back together again after all these expenses, then we could test the gas behavior in outer space. Finally.
Meanwhile, you can
I'm
get a
not
ticket.
having
You can
this
get a ticket to.
tacit acceptance of space existing with this conversation continuing.
Yeah, I just
What
tried to get that in there.
space is
To begging the
buying it?
question, he's forcing us to beg the question with him. Right,
Yeah.
it's a begging the question fallacy and a special pleading fallacy.
Also, gravitational
Nathan.
accretion. Also, gravitational accretion speaks directly to gravitational forces, not pseudo-Riemannian force space, by the way.
Yeah,
You're
but
saying
it's all
gravitational-
allowed in
Hold on, I
forces,
thought
you know,
gravitational accretion was
so-
Einsteinian as opposed to Newtonian.
No, it's not.
Oh, right.
Nope.
My bad.
As soon as it comes to real mechanics of the galaxy, they use Newtonian because Einstein it doesn't actually work.
Hold on then.
It's
In Einsteinian bendings for space-time, when they talk about geodesics in space-time, what are they describing in terms of what I've labelled incorrectly as gravitational accretion? How does stuff form? If that's not
Well,
speaking to... Go on.
Yeah. No, I see gravitational accretion is claimed to be prior to Einstein.
I'll get that.
Regardless of when it's
That's
said.
not my question.
prior to his time.
Okay, before you
So
rub
it's
in how
forces,
stupid I've been.
it
Hold on,
forces
Brian. Hold on.
gravitational forces.
Hold on. I'm asking, in Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian for space-time bending, right? The effect they describe with the geodesic bending of space-time, how does that do the job of gravitational accretion? How does Einstein
doesn't.
explain how planets are formed if it's a Newtonian, and I'll put my hand up and say I had this incorrect, I'd sandwich the two together like a baller does, an anti-flat earther does, right? My bad. Anti-flat earthers will sandwich the two together. I've done it, but I want to know how it actually works. How does Einstein in bending geodesics give you the moon after an impact from Theia, as that explained?
It doesn't. And they
It doesn't.
haven't
The mass
explained.
has to already be there for it to bend the space-time.
Right.
the mass has
Einstein
to be
mathematics
formed
can only
via
be applied
gravitational
at...
forces.
Oh my God.
Hang on. I'm trying to tell.
Brian,
the
go
mass
ahead.
has to already be there for the bending of the space-time. So the creation of the mass had to happen through gravitational forces, which is a complete contradiction to general relativity.
Exactly.
But they need both. So they had to do a switcheroo in 1915.
Well, what they do is first they apply a template, a Newtonian mechanical template for all the bodies and the supposed forces, which they still will be, and then afterward they can apply Einstein mathematical trickery. They can bend it a little, right? That's how they did it with Mercury in our solar system, because it wouldn't fit in the Newtonian model. It would fall into the sun very quickly. So they had to kind of like put a little Einsteinian paint on that Newtonian template. So that's how I see it. That's how they apply it every time. It's always secondary Einsteinian stuff.
So it literally runs as deep as it has no explanation for it. What's the point of it? What is the point of Einstein? I'm a bit of a lost word here. So what does it do
It's
exactly?
like a painting. It's like a painting, a model mathematical painting that they make. They use the Newtonian template because that's the only thing that can actually account for multiple bodies of attraction. And then they can supposedly perfect it, chisel the fine details with Einsteinian mechanics if they feel they need to. This is just
Nathan, you've
artistry.
Let me. They need both. So they needed gravitational accretion, which would be a force of gravity, a force of attraction. They needed that to create the masses that then curve space-time within general relativity. But they got to a point where with what they were calling Newtonian, where they couldn't go any further. And to expand their universe and expand their science fiction story, they needed something, and they were about to implode. Einstein came along. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for them, and they expanded their story and while completely contradicting their story, their prior story.
They got more creative options thanks to Einsteinian mechanics, but it also became more unprovable and more ethereal as a consequence.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of contradiction, and we don't even try to fit from a physics point of view, get into how plasma star is formed. Go on, sorry.
I've just looked up a quick cursory.
Nathan,
just going to do the wiki crawl, Jeranism style. If a planet bends space-time inwards at the surface, right? Planets per se do not bend anything. It's the subatomic particles that planets' constructs form that causes the warping of space-time. And then it goes on about the problem of bending space-time and starts to talk about spaghettification, but it doesn't actually explain how it works within Einsteinian. I mean, I knew it had its faults. I knew it only worked on one mass. But I suppose it's obvious. If it only works on one mass, how can you have it explain how two masses attract to one another, as in gravitational accretion? I just didn't know it was that bad.
Well,
you can't.
Nathan,
you can only apply it afterwards.
Arwen, take a break. My gosh. You can't see I'm trying to get in.
Sorry.
Thank you. You've explained this already without knowing it, Nathan. You've said they ran into a problem with gravity. Mass attracts mass, so they had to make up something else. So they made it into another dimension to cover up for the lack of evidence for gravity. Now, all the other things are going to contradict, of course. But why do they have to go there? Because gravity was having a problem. Mass doesn't attract mass.
Yeah, and don't forget the circular reasoning. Sorry. Someone else was saying something there?
Go ahead, whoever it was, Duncan.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying pseudo-Riemannian force space is obviously just a trampoline. So what's the problem?
Well, it's not. That's an incorrect. That a trampoline is a false equivalency of what Einstein described. So when people see that, that's a hoodwink. That's a completely false equivalency of what space-time is claimed to be and how special and general relativity work. Because
it's still Newtonian.
Yeah, because that would involve everything falling towards the center, not orbiting. It's a different thing. The orbiting is based on the bending of the geodesic.
Right, and even when they do an orbiting trick, right, where they try to throw a ball that spins around, they still say, yeah, but in reality, it finds an equilibrium and then keeps spinning around it because there's no friction because of the vacuum or blah, 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 something, right? But they can't actually demonstrate because in reality, of course, when they do the trampoline trick, any orbiting ball is very quickly going to actually hit the central weight. So, but that's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. But worse again is the circular reasoning when it comes to dark matter, as they require dark matter for general relativity to continue, because they are claiming to see movements in the sky that is not explained via what they're calling gravity these days, which is general relativity. So they have to create dark matter to add matter into places that they can't detect it, because dark matter can't be detected because it doesn't absorb, emit, or reflect any electromagnetic light or anything. It doesn't, like, there's no absorption emission rate or
electromagnetic
or
light. What the
reflection.
hell is electromagnetic light?
Sorry, yeah, light. Just say light. Just say light. Right. So, right. Yeah. Okay. I got it wrong. But the point is that they needed dark matter to exist for their current story to keep going, right? But how they validate dark matter is gravitational effects. That right? But those gravitational effects, they needed dark matter for that part of the story to keep going. So it's a completely circular position. So dark matter is validated by gravitational effects. Gravitational effects are validated by dark matter, right? So none of them are validated, if you understand, even within heliocentrism.
Yeah, that's a good point. Effectively, dark matter was conjured up to balance the equation. Literally, it was conjured for mathematical purposes to balance out why the galaxy would supposedly stick together, even though it had all that room to expand into. So they still kind of had like a second law of thermodynamics trace in their mind when they were conjuring this. But they figured out that mathematically it's just not fitting. They have to create this counter force. And that became dark matter, but it was born purely mathematically.
Really, mathematical. Let's see the equation.
You want to hear more?
Let's see I want to see that first equation that was unbalanced.
I do not know it personally. That's the story that they told me.
Who are they?
My teacher in school that was aware that it is mathematical. He was actually aware, potentially, that it's not real. But that's how it worked.
Gonna need a name.
I don't remember, and even if I did, I'm not gonna tell you the name of my teachers.
That's friggin' horse pucky then.
Nathan, did you have a saying about dark matter?
I don't think so. That's what dark matter is. It was to balance the equation. Because the forces of gravity, Newtonian gravity.
All right, I want to see the equation. You keep on saying equation.
I have never seen an equation. I've only been told this story by multiple people.
Now it's multiple people. So you got the teacher. Who else?
Nathan, didn't you have a saying about
white lies on a live show?
I'm sorry.
Calling you out as a little white liar, saying you just made this shit up.
No, I did not make this shit up, and I'm not going to reveal my sources of my youth. Thanks.
Arwen, you may be mixing up a little bit dark matter with dark energy. That's a different description. Dark energy.
I might be. I barely know the difference between the two. So this is all just conceptual mumbo jumbo, really, to me. This is the story that I absorbed about it. It was conjured up to balance the equation with gravity.
Here we go again.
Otherwise, the galaxy would explode, basically.
Here we go again. I want to see that equation.
I've never seen the equation.
Well, look, dark energy is claimed to be equal throughout the whole of the heliocentric universe, as it's spread evenly throughout it, and it is basically the cause of the heliocentric universe constantly expanding, and it works in opposition to gravity. Now, how can you work in opposition to something that is not a force? and only in an apparent effect. So there is another contradiction from their side. How can you be working in opposition to something that's a non-force, a pseudo-force, an apparent effect? And now, obviously, the bigger question is, what's it expanding into? And according to Sabine Hossenfelder, the universe is expanding into itself.
Brilliant.
Right, there you go.
Bring me my Hassenpfeffer.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
QE
Yes,
with
dark matter needs to be there, or otherwise the gravity of the universe would make it explode.
That viable hypothesis.
Hassenpfeffer.
Is it viable? Well, you're alive, aren't you? We're in a stable place. It's not
We
exploding,
have a
so it has
we
to
have
be
a
true.
viable Hassenpfeffer.
Well,
with it.
according to
Hassenpfeffer.
hang on, let's get to the
Come
let's get to the question. Is there any viable scientific hypothesis from cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics? Right. According to a PhD astronomer, whose performance is being assessed at present by QE, he has looked through telescopes and been able to determine the actual size and temperature of celestial bodies.
How? How did he
What?
do that?
Really? Actual
Now that
size.
is obviously past hypotheses, because that's what he's aiming to be an actual scientific experiment. But
He'll need R
that's
for
what
that. He'll need R. Any evidence of the R value?
Yeah, there's flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. That's not much evidence for an R value.
That's not. Yeah, I was going to say that may be
Don't we
what
have
they've used to
pictures?
derive their R value from. That's correct. That isn't evidence of an R value, though, is it?
Don't we have pictures
No.
from Michael Collins?
What about him? Great painter.
Well, he did the painting. He did the painting with an R value. Isn't that suffice?
I just want to hang on. I want to critique something there. We suppose that he did the painting. We don't know, but we do know he was a photorealism painter, and he
Well, what
specialized in
Yeah, we know he
photorealism
did it.
paintings.
We
of-
know he did it. What do you mean we don't know he did it? We've seen
you
footage of him
can't
doing
speak
photos
to
just
positive
like
claim.
this.
You can just speculate that it was probably him.
I can
Can I go
speculate
on?
with a high degree of probability that a man who created almost identical imagery to this created this imagery, given that he was paid by NASA and was claimed to go out to a sky vacuum to photograph this image. Now, I know he didn't do that, but I also know he's a photorealist painter. So I'm going to say with a fair degree of certainty that he did paint this, on account of the fact that's what he does. What he doesn't do is go out and take pictures from a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. So given that he doesn't travel to space and we've got images of him actually painting stuff, I'm going to say he painted this.
Well, this all has to do with Earth curve anyway. And from what the guy told me yesterday, as I was talking to him, as we're looking over the skyline and tried to explain some things to him, he said, dude, the reason why you can't see the buildings behind these buildings is because of Earth curve. So everybody still thinks Earth curve is a reality.
Covered that on the other show, live show, but I may as well just cover all of them in this one. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth? Black Swan.
There's only a claim of refracted horizon that would absolutely ruin all 1.1508 conversions between nautical and statute miles.
Did you hear that, Neil?
I know.
The
but
guy
how
just
do
said
we
he's
get it
blocked.
through to them.
He's saying they've got boats and buildings blocked, a la this image on screen. Well, refracted curvature, namesake of one of the panel members, is that because if the Earth was a sphere radius 3959, every distance to this horizon blocking this boat could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as asserted in the claim. And we've got imagery beyond the geometric limitations of an Earth sphere radius 3959.
Oh dear.
You only need one. Black Swan. Once you've shown that it's not a physical hill getting in the way of boats and buildings, it doesn't suddenly magically become a geometric obstruction the following day. Likewise, if you show someone a black swan when they're claiming there isn't any, you're not going to have a multitude of white swans shown to you in the preceding days? Because who cares? Up until the point that you've got a black swan presented, your claim might make sense. But once you show there is a black swan in existence, then that's it. It's game over.
It's an anomaly.
But on a really clear day, when there's no refraction, that means there's extreme refraction.
See, that's a convoluted bait and switch attempt, because when you say that in a globe Earth context, you're talking about terrestrial refraction, otherwise known as atmospheric refraction. Well, that refraction isn't anything to do with refraction. It's 7/6 of the radius value. This question started... No, it didn't. It was an Earth-Kerr question. The former question was about the radius value. Well, if you're going to assert refraction, then you need to have an R value to claim your refraction, because it's refraction in name only. 7/6 of a radius needs a radius value. Where are you getting it from? Oh, a tangent point to a geometric sphere edge? The one you're claiming is refracted? That's a paradox. Here it is,
but
marked
it's
with an
extreme.
X, labelled horizon. That point is where they say the boat was getting blocked by. Do you see the straight line to it? Watch how that line gets bent by Andrew Thomas Young to give these Muppets the McGurk refraction parrot that they've been putting at us for the last 2 to 3 years. Why? Well, because the geometry, marked O to G, gives them R, G to C. That's how they measure it. That's Al-Biruni's method of dip angle, after measuring H, which would be his height from a flat plane derivation. But this H, marked, is not conducive with this C that has a straight line to it. You can't bend your own geometry. That's where it snaps. Because you need a tangent. Don't you, Ruhif? Apparently he's become one of my channel members. Wow. Absurd type of pain relief you're looking for, my friend. You need a tangent point marked here by Al-Biruni at C. Refraction! That's where your model died. On its arse. Because you need to assert your geometry. It's the same geometry Ruhif, my newest member, assert it was blocking boats and buildings. Isle of Man. That's Isle of Man, not I love man. Although I do. Man is wonderful.
Man, what are you talking about? Listen, Andrew Thomas Young said he has to have a geometric consideration. So he bent it in order to make it fit a globe. But he never achieved it from that, because he admits all his calculations for refraction came off of a plane.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yes, it would have to be there.
What?
No, it
The
would
apple
have
fell
to
off
be
the
there.
tree.
Newtonian gravity keeps the solar system together with a little sprinkle of Einsteinian gravity to keep Mercury in its place.
Gravity's not a force. Doesn't do or keep anything anywhere. What was it you said one deck? Apples, something. Newtonian apples or something you said.
Yeah. That's the natural phenomenon. Observing an apple fall off a tree. So the Earth must be spherical with a force pulling everything in, obviously.
That's
And what is
non-sequitur. Hold on.
Mercury anyway?
Not enough meat on that bone. That's non-sequitur. Hold on. That's non-sequitur. If you just say apple falls from tree, therefore Earth's a sphere, with a force that pulls stuff to the middle, I don't have enough meat on that bone to make it anything other than a non-sequitur fallacy. An apple falling doesn't tell me Earth's a sphere.
Well, that's out of date anyway. That's Newtonian, or claimed to be Newtonian. That's
He didn't mention anything
Einstein's
about-
equivalence principle.
He didn't say anything about Newton. He just said an apple falling tells me it's a sphere. That's all he said.
But he said a force pulls it down. That's not current. Current is Einstein's equivalence principle.
Fair enough. That's
which is-
107 years out of date, Brian saying.
And I'm asking Arwen what Mercury is.
Liquid metal stuff that tells you how hot it is if you put it in a tube. Calibrate it.
I'd just like to say, thank God for gravity, or we'd all be dead.
Why
This
would we be
started
dead?
out with Newton.
What?
Let's
Because
hear
we
what
fly
he said.
into
Go on one day.
Mass attracts mass. That's why things fall. It's what keeps the ocean stuck to the ball. Thank God for gravity, or we'd all be dead. Now here's Einstein's new gravity, because Newton's is dead. So let's hear what scientific Einstein said. Gravity is no longer a force. And wait for it, this only gets worse. Gravity is a concept of bending space-time. It's a dimension. Why would I lie? See it or test it to prove that it's there. It's an imaginary concept, to be fair. Description of gravity number 2. And if humanity keeps on waking, this is what they'll do. They'll invent a new gravity and call it number 3. The globe spinning, you see. But in the meantime, remember what they said. Gravity, or we'd all be dead.
Perfect. That was excellent.
Excellent.
Very good. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell for the second time. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.